Hi, this is Jason with Invasion of the Remake podcast. Just a few show notes before we get going. At about the 1 hour mark, there is a bit of static. We apologize for that. After normalizing the audio, we did get to suppress it down a little bit, but it still sounds like we're in a bit of a tunnel with some fuzzy fur on top of our voices. So again, we apologize for it, but this is a really good show. I encourage you to stick around right to the end because it is a very awesome show. And again, apologies, but here we go. And welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast. I'm your host, Jason Bishop, and today we're talking about Infernal Affairs and The Departed. Now, just to give you a quick run-through of what The Departed and Infernal Affairs is, a police officer infiltrates the triad while a police officer secretly works for the same gang. So that's a really quick breakdown. We're going to get really into these movies. And I'm going to introduce my co-host today, the man with the tale of woe on the unceasing path, Jeff McNair.
Yeah, my continuous hell of trying to watch the Infernal Affair.
Now, the unceasing path is the lowest level of hell in Buddhism where one endures hell incessantly. And that seems to be your journey watching these films this week. And we will get into that after I introduce Trish Coughlin.
Hey, everybody.
Who's not sweaty, hasn't biked up here. I have nothing to make fun of you about this week.
I know, it's my first unsweaty
Except
podcast.
for the fact that you weren't here first.
Yeah, you were late.
I know. Well, I wasn't late. You were here earlier than you ever been before.
We're actually starting late because part of our infernal journey on this is our first take didn't take.
Yes.
So,
we are remaking the introduction.
This is the remake to the introduction, and I think we should just go right into Jeff's tale of woe and his journey watching this again. And hopefully it's as good the second time around, even though you guys didn't hear it the first time around.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll recount this tale of woe. So we picked these movies after recording last week's episode, and I set out to watch it. So I figured because this is a movie that The Departed is based on, speaking specifically of Infernal Affair, I went to the usual ways to watch a movie. I went to Netflix, and it was not on Canadian or American Netflix. So I went to YouTube next, and there's lots of old movies on YouTube. This movie's from 2002, Infernal Affair, and it was not there in its entirety in English subtitles in any aspect, and it was either broken into parts or region locked because of we're in Canada. Like, I couldn't watch the movie. And I phoned around to DVD stores to try and find a physical copy of the movie.
Was this the first time I talked you off the tower?
Trying to find the movie? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and everybody kept telling me they had Internal Affair, which is a totally different movie. So I was getting pretty frustrated at my inability to watch this film. And at this point, it was Tuesday or Wednesday in the week, so my time frame to watch this closely enough that I can say stuff about it was getting pretty small, and I tried to quit like 3 or 4 times, and Jason wouldn't let me, so we arranged I would come over and pick up his grubby DVD 9 copy that he bought somewhere outside of Vancouver years ago.
Yeah, I bought it in Richmond, BC during a break during my film classes that I was taking. And my first journey watching this movie, I'm really engrossed with it. And 20 minutes, this DVD cuts out. So I warned him ahead of time. I'm like, here it is. You're on your own in the last 20 minutes. And I, up until this week, hadn't seen the last 20 minutes either.
Which, knowing what I know now, is a cruel, cruel thing to do to somebody.
Oh, man, because I was screaming at my TV. I was like, no!
Yeah, it's like probably stops at the most pivotal moment of the climax.
Yes!
But So to counteract this, Jason gave me a flash drive that also contained the movie, which he had earlier tried to Dropbox me, and it kept crashing every time I tried to download it. I tried to watch it inside of Dropbox, and it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. So I get it home, and I pop in the DVD, and it plays through, and it's super engaging and beautifully shot, and we'll get into how awesome Infernal Affair is. And yep, that 20-minute to the end mark, it just dies, and I fight with it for a good half hour, trying to jump back into later scenes and fast forward and pause and rewind and just try to get past this hiccup in the DVD, and it would not do it. So out of desperation, I went to YouTube and I watched the last 20 minutes of the movie in Chinese with no subtitles. And the movie on YouTube didn't even go all the way to the end. It's probably missing 5 or 10 minutes. So I have a pretty good idea of what happened, and also watching The Departed, because they do follow each other fairly closely.
Yeah.
I think I know what went on, but it's part of my continuous hell that I can't see the end of this movie. So I'm going to find a way to get a copy of this thing. Somehow a legitimate copy of this movie so I can sit down and watch it again, because it is incredible, and you should go out of your way to try to find it. But if it throws you into your own personal hell, say hi to Pinhead when you get there. He'll know I already went through.
Yeah. I think Google Play has it.
Yeah, and we don't have time to do Amazon orders prior to recording these things, but there is a box set on Amazon that I am going to order, because I do want to see 2 and 3 now.
For sure.
And there actually is a 4th one that I'm not even sure there might even be a 5th one, but it's the original trilogy before they kind of went back to the well, and I imagine 4 and 5 probably aren't worth your time, but I'm so engaged by this franchise right now that I do want to keep going with it.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I'll get into that, because there is an alternate ending to this that I learned about earlier today, but I don't think any of us saw the alternate ending.
I guarantee you I didn't see it.
You didn't see any ending.
I got no ending.
Yeah, I got an ending, but I'm curious.
Yeah, well, we're not going to start with the ending. I mean, we do jump around in this podcast. We're not going to jump that far. So I'm going to run the trailer for Infernal Affairs. Yes, I found an English version of it on YouTube, so don't worry. And our Chinese listeners, you've probably seen your version a million times. So relax, sit back, listen to the trailer, and we will be back in a couple of minutes.
Friends became the best cadets on the force. One went undercover to infiltrate the mob. The other is a highly respected officer, but his true loyalty belongs to the crime lord. Now, they're both out to uncover the traitor among them. They know he's dangerous. They know he's deadly. What they don't know is that they're hunting for each other. The New York Times raves it's dazzling, riveting, a blistering thriller.
Okay, so I have a question for you guys. Now we've seen this trailer. If in a perfect world, and yes, this is probably the only time we are going to be reviewing or talking about a movie that won Best Picture, but in a perfect world of Oscars and other awards, if Infernal Affairs and Departed were up against each other for the same award and no other competition, which one would you pick?
Infernal
Affairs.
Bam, let's make it 3. Now,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Far superior movie.
And no offense to Marty Scorsese, big fan, but yeah, he tried too hard to mix it with his mob flair that he does so well. A little bit of Whitey Bulger story in there. That
you don't need to bloat it up to 2.5 hours.
I find
you don't need to add
bloated.
characters that serve no goddamn purpose.
And condense one that I think was important as their separate characters, which was the wife and the therapist in Infernal Affairs were merged into that one therapist girlfriend character.
Yeah, unnecessary.
To make this bloated love triangle thing.
But they condensed her, but then added a love triangle for some goddamn reason.
Yeah, just to make things even more complicated, because an undercover cop in the mob and a mob guy undercover with the cops is not complicated enough.
Yeah, it can get confusing, especially like in Infernal Affair where everybody has the same haircut. It's difficult to differentiate the characters for the first half of the movie until the undercover mob or the undercover cop grows his little like kind of half beard, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's that guy. So now we know who he is.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, but between like Matt Damon and Mark Wahlberg and like Leonardo DiCaprio, like I don't know, just square, blonde, kind of brickhead men.
Yeah.
They all look the same.
They were also in that movie. I found that the characters were like almost like comic book characters in The Departed. They were so over the top with whatever singular personality trait to really set them apart as characters. And I wonder if that was intentional.
I think they went overboard in trying to develop them as characters more than Infernal Affairs does. Infernal Affairs is a very concise go, go, go kind of film. Let's get the point over. And I think they do it very well. It's not a case of rushing it along. It's just a case of it's so gripping all the time.
Just cuts out the unnecessary bullshit.
I became very noticeable of it. Like when I'm watching Infernal Affairs, like I watched them back to back today. And in Infernal Affairs, they kind of really make shorten when they start to put him back into the triads. Like it is like maybe 2 minutes. That's it. And then he goes out. Whereas in The Departed, they're like, oh no, we have to have a whole montage of him at the academy. You don't need that.
Yeah.
In the Academy
they
and in the
did some
office.
Academy stuff in both of them, but
but in Infernal Affairs, it's very clear.
It's very clear. Now, you went through the list of some of the Departed actors. I'm just going to go over who was involved in Infernal Affairs and The Departed, because these are a who's who of Chinese cinema and American cinema. These are the cream of the crop type of actors, and the Infernal Affairs was a big Chinese movie. Didn't do so well over here. In Hong Kong, it grossed $55 million just in Hong Kong.
Wow.
With its limited U.S. release, it was $170,000. So what's probably 4 theaters or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it should have done a lot better, but
you never know.
Trying
Maybe
to convince North American audiences a lot of the times, and even my own friends, to watch movies.
Something with subtitles.
Subtitles, and I have no problem with that.
Can be
I love
difficult,
doing it.
Does it have a love triangle? Not interested.
Yeah, so this movie was, Infernal Affairs was directed by Andrew Lau and Alan Mack, and I say Andrew Lau because the star of the movie is Andy Lau, but they are two different people. It was written by Alan Mack and Felix Chong, starring Andy Lau, Tony Chiu Wai Leaung. Please forgive me for butchering this, to our Chinese audience. Please forgive me a million times. Eric Tsang, Anthony Chau-Sang Wong, Kelly Chen, and Sammi Cheng. And for The Departed, which was directed by Martin Scorsese, who won a Best Picture Oscar for this, as well as Best Director. Screenplay by William Monahan, who you might know from Body of Lies, Kingdom of Heaven, and Edge of Darkness. He was involved in all those scripts. So he won Best Adapted Screenplay for The Departed. So it's much easier to write an Oscar-winning movie when somebody's already written it for you, right?
Oh, for Pete's sake, yeah. It's easier to write a scene when it's basically the exact same scene. You just changed it to English.
Starring Leo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, Mark Wahlberg, Martin Sheen, Ray Winstone, Alec Baldwin, and it just goes on like this.
It really does, yeah.
It's like,
Martin Scorsese
who
can
is
get
your
who he
top
wants.
list? Yeah, he can get whoever he wants. Now, the budget, I couldn't find a budget for the Infernal Affairs, but the budget for The Departed was $90 million, which is crazy high, and I'm sure most of that went to paychecks.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
For a movie of this type, because, not a lot of CG and whatnot, but it's there in the blood and stuff. I miss practical effects. Anyway, it grossed, worldwide, it grossed $289 million and change, and $132 million just in the US alone. It opens with $26.8 million in its opening weekend. So it was a huge hit, unlike a lot of Oscar winners.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it was so easy to find a copy of The Departed. It was such a huge movie. Everybody's got 6 copies on DVD, and you have it in some weirdo box set.
I got the Warner 100 box set, and I'm like, Oh, I wonder if it's in there. Sure enough.
Of course.
Yeah, and the backside of the DVD is 300.
Yeah.
Because they're
let's
similar.
say Warner didn't win a Oscar every single year. They just picked out of for that box set key moments for every year, and that was probably one of their shittier years. But I still like 300. So
I love 300. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That box set's amazing because it's one movie per year for its history, and at some point I want to watch them in order. So I don't remember. It's 100 movies, man. It's not
It'd be one of the first ones.
It's not sitting in front of me. I'm pretty sure it's on there though. So.
Good. It better
Yeah,
be.
if it isn't on there, I'd be surprised.
I'll be calling somebody.
Yeah. Okay. So we all agree we preferred Infernal Affairs.
That's not to say The Departed is a bad movie.
Not at all.
No.
It is the performance in both of these movies are amazing. Like Infernal Affairs, just to put this in perspective and how a bit of unfair, because we all agree we think Infernal Affairs is the better movie. It was Hong Kong had put it up for Best Foreign Picture for the Oscars that year, 2002, the 76th Academy Awards. But it did not get nominated. It won a ton of awards in its own country, like more than we can shake a stick at. But it didn't even get nominated for Best Foreign Film, which I think is a crime in and of itself.
Probably because the board, the 6 elderly guys that pick all the movies, don't want to look at subtitles.
No.
Well, I mean, that's
they were
why
thinking,
there's a
hey,
foreign category.
Let's
if
remake
judges.
this. Maybe they thought,
Just
it's
make
good.
it again.
Let's just do
but
it.
it needs a
with
love story.
Americans.
Create a triangle out of nothing.
Marty hasn't got his best picture yet.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's eliminate the character arcs. Those are problematic.
They can be problematic. Like Infernal Affairs you have to really be involved in that movie, or you'll get lost.
Yeah,
It doesn't drive it home so blatantly, obviously, like
well,
The
just
Departed.
reading the subtitles makes you be engaged in that movie, and maybe that also gave it an advantage in my mind because I was paying more attention to it.
Yeah, for sure. You really need to, though. Like,
yeah.
It's very, like we said, it's very fast-paced.
Yeah, it really is a pretty kinetic movie. Now, it opens fairly early. The gangster character is embedded into the police academy, and there's obviously cadets who are trying to make it. And both of these movies do this scene, and in their own way.
Not quite.
Kind
they
of.
don't. In Infernal Affairs, he's put out to go into the triads as a cadet. But in The Departed, they do this whole thing like at the station with the chief. These guys are in the same place. Like it wouldn't be a secret.
They actually kind of skip past it a bit, yeah.
Yeah, in Infernal Affairs, like it seems to be more one of those things where it actually is, you can see how surreptitious it is. Like they would never find out who this guy is. But since Leonardo DiCaprio is sitting in that office for so long, they could have easily found out who he was.
Well,
like,
and they do, in both movies, they bump into each other quite a bit without actually realizing they're the ones that are hunting for each other. Because they are tasked with hunting the moles down for their prospective parties.
That was one to jump around because it's Invasion of the Remake and we jump around.
Sure.
The thing that I thought that when they're going to find each other for that first time in the theater, and of course in the Infernal Affair, because they don't ham the shit out of everything. It's a normal theater. And
oh, yes.
Oh,
my
God.
problem, too. It has to be a porn for some reason.
It has to be a porn theater.
Like, I hate to tell you, and maybe this is different in Boston. I think that's where the movie took place. There are no porn theaters in Calgary, and I don't think there have been any since the 70s.
That's what I was about to say. Like, do they even exist anymore?
There is this is totally unrelated. I was in Portland.
I could have gone to see the new FF movie and been in that empty theater.
Yeah.
Totally, right?
Yeah, there's
we're
zero
never
reason,
talking about that movie
there's
again.
zero
That
reason
was
to
your
make
one
it a
time.
porno theater. Like, zero.
It's because they got to do everything stupidly. It really
And it was legitimate porn, too. Did you catch in the credits footage provided by Vivid Video?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It's legitimate porn. Did you notice something in that theater sequence in Infernal Affair where they're going through the hallways and the two main characters are about to meet each other, and of course, it's early in the movie, so they don't.
Mm-hmm.
But all the American movies, K-19 and Men in
write
Black
that
2.
down.
Yeah, I saw that.
I
yeah.
was going to write them all down, but yeah, it just really speaks for the time.
Yeah.
And so they do all this. There's a lot of subtlety in Infernal Affair that goes well with how fast-paced it is. In Infernal Affair, he communicates, the mole, the cop in the gang, communicates through Morse code. And it's super subtle and it's brilliantly executed. And I loved that. There's also a really heavy focus on flip phones in both movies.
Yeah.
But I love that. But then there's all these little personality quirks that everybody has. And the thing in the theater sequence, to get back to what I was talking about, is in the theater, he notices the guy from behind, the mole in the police station, and he's tapping the file on his leg impatiently as they're walking along. And then his phone goes and it's all the same, right? And they split up and that's it. They miss their opportunity. They don't see each other. We move on quickly with the story.
The characters had priorly met in Infernal Affairs in a stereo shop, which is a scene I quite liked.
Oh, one of the best scenes in the movie.
They're just friendly with each other. He wasn't even working in the shop, but he helped this guy, handed him cords, and
he's like, no, you want this amp? The tubes have to warm up. Once they do, it'll be
tube amps, guys.
This incredible, courteous, normal interaction with each other.
Yeah, it was really great, and you find out they're both music people and audiophile types and stuff. And I was just discussing off air how that scene was like really, really great, and they gloss over it.
Yeah.
Later on. But he buys a stereo.
Yeah. They don't even do it in The Departed, so.
No, they don't. No. And it's alluded to in the stereo thing, but I'll get back to the theater thing. So tap, 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 and they miss each other, right? And that tap will be a big tell later on in the movie, in Infernal Affair. Now, because we're a Scorsese picture, we've got
also the file itself that he's tapping.
The file itself, yeah. But
in talking about the tapping, there's like the other thing with the mole uses Morse code. That's how the other guy kind of finds out how he's communicating, because he's looking at his office, the set special sergeant, doing the tap thing with his fingers as he's figuring out the Morse code he's getting.
Yeah, there's so much subtlety in this, in Infernal Affair, that just gets lost in the heavy-handed way that Scorsese delivers it. But even that theater sequence, it's in a porn theater, and it's loud and boisterous, and realistically, the way they were acting, anybody would know who that guy was, and they leave, and they throw in this ridiculous scene where Matt Damon stabs that guy in the chest. So it's like, oh, by the way, remember this is a bad guy, because the audience is stupid. I kind of felt that Scorsese treated the audience of Infernal Affair like you were stupid. They dumbed it down. Yeah. And I really disliked it. And that was one of those scenes where it didn't make sense. You wouldn't just stab a guy in a busy street in whatever porno alleyway you're in.
But this goes to something that I found, and it just sort of lead me to discover this, like for this Scorsese movie, and I think for like a few others, is there's no character arcs in it. You have a group of characters who are the same at the beginning as they were at the end, and just stuff happens around them.
Now, something fundamentally
Infernal
important.
Affairs, they have character arcs.
Yeah, something really fundamentally important that's in Infernal Affairs that I don't think Scorsese accomplishes in his film is that these characters, they've been embedded for a good 10 years in their Departed. It's fairly quick.
It's 1 year.
3 to 5.
Yeah, it's a much shorter time period, but you see it over a longer period of time for The Departed, whereas you kind of catch up to them in Infernal Affairs after 10 years. But there is a sense in Infernal Affairs that Chen, who's the cop, is kind of losing his sense of self and becoming more the gangster. And it doesn't help that there's only one guy left who knows who he is and that he's embedded. And in the other side of things, Andy Lau's character, which is ironically Lau, the gangster embedded cop, he's becoming more cop-like, and he's wanting. You get this sense
he wants that life.
He wants that life. I think he wants to exit, and we certainly see that develop over the course of the film. At no point did I think Matt Damon regretted any part of his life.
No. His only concern throughout this whole movie was
covering his own ass.
Yes, that's it. And that's what drives me nuts. Like, why is it so hard to put in like a character arc? Why can't you do that? Like,
why wouldn't you do that with the caliber of actors that movie had?
I know, right? Like, it was such a lost opportunity.
Like I'm saying, I'm watching the same characters from beginning to end with just stuff occurring around them, and that's it.
They're all one dimension. Every character in that movie is a one-dimensional character.
The only character I expected to stay the same would be the mob boss. He's the only one who should.
And they're incredible performances, and they really beef up Nicholson's role in The Gangster, which is loosely based on Whitey Bulger, as the case of over Han Sam. Yeah, Han Sam.
Yeah, Sam. They call him Sam.
Yeah, Sam. Over in Infernal Affairs. We don't get a lot of scenes with him. Specifically, like a lot of character moments. Jack Nicholson gets a lot of character moments, and he's
too much.
He's definitely unhinged, but I don't know, like, and the microchip thing made no sense to me either. Honestly,
zero. There's no reason for it.
Why
to
do you go microchips instead of drugs? Drugs, it's always been a crime underworld thing.
I love this, like, zero. It's microchips to the Chinese, no microprocessors. Like, they're not even really paying attention.
And then they
technology.
do the meeting with the Chinese, and I like, okay, this is a good time to throw in Andy Lau and just get some of those characters from the first film in different parts as a cameo, and then they're not there.
What also drove me nuts about this whole thing is like, okay, well, they're gangsters. They know nothing about no chips. That's how they gloss it over. It's like, I'm just a dumb cop. I don't know what these microprocessor thingies do.
Yeah, you're telling me you gave quote-unquote microprocessors to the Chinese and they didn't realize they were light sockets?
Yeah.
Like, thanks, Scorsese.
That's the stupidest thing. That drove me insane.
You know, for something that got bloated over almost an extra hour.
Yeah, if you're going to do technology, freaking hire somebody who can tell you what it is and not look like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know. I loved the sequence in Infernal Affair with the tie. Like, that was really fun, and there was like some cultural difference that they like make fun of back and forth with each other. And in this one, it's like, and in Departed, it's like, you are dumb Chinese. Yeah. Here's our light sockets. Give us your money.
Oh, well, actually, the cultural difference with the ties in Infernal Affairs actually ties into how they figure out stuff.
Yeah,
because the one guy's like going, I speak Thai. I know what they're complaining about. They're complaining that the guys at this dock are cold. So that's how they know that's where they're delivering the drugs to.
Yeah, but in Infernal Affair, there's a lot of...
Yes, we're not talking about neckties. We're talking about Thailand people.
Thailand people,
sorry. They say ties in the movie. Yes. But in Infernal Affair, there's a lot of, like... I know it's crazy for the subject matter, but a lot of undercover, covert stuff that happens. And you spend time with both the moles, seeing them investigate things. You know, they're both very skilled at their job. There's none of that in Departed.
No, these guys were top of their class in Infernal Affairs. These guys get berated in their first interview. I don't know how either one of them wanted to be cops in the first place. They're just hammered so bad by Mark Wahlberg, who did get nominated for a Best Supporting Actor.
And
FYI, this brings me to my main point.
He was a very good asshole.
My main
point. And the performance is, like I said, it sounds like we're knocking The Departed, which is an Oscar-winning movie. We did like this movie.
I enjoyed it, but Mark
the performances
Wahlberg,
are great.
You didn't
That's
like him?
a pointless character. He should
was a
never have been
pointless
put in.
character.
There's no reason for him to be there.
He was very good at it, and
he was good at it, but he should have been ditched.
There was a point for him to be there, and it's that final scene. Unfortunately, that final scene should have never happened.
That's why I'm saying, if you had a character arc, you don't need that goddamn final scene. I.e., you can ditch that character completely.
Okay, speaking of characters, Infernal Affairs, Lau has a wife. And they're settling down in a new apartment, and that's why they bought the stereo.
And she's adorable and really OCD.
Yeah.
How many boxes did I count?
There was the one point,
and she's a writer. Like, they give her a thing.
Yeah.
She's
and
a person.
Where is I keep having to look at my notes.
Vera Farmiga, who plays the love interest.
Sorry, no.
In The Departed?
Yeah, no, I'm going back to the other one. So Chen, he has a therapist that's been appointed by the police department as somebody who's, I think he had to go through it for appearance sake, for being thrown out of or washing out of the academy, even though that was a whole kayfabe.
Well, he'd been under for 10 years. 10 years.
Yeah. So he was seeing this therapist to kind of get him through all of that as well, while falling in love with her. But there's a scene, but at some point,
subtle.
There's a scene where he meets somebody from his past that just seemed to come out of nowhere. This really cute girl.
They don't really do anything with it.
And I get why. I do get what it's there for. I'm not sure it was important for the movie per se, but it was important for his character. He runs into this girl, really attractive girl. She's got a daughter, and this is somebody he knew from his childhood. And I think he had a crush on, or was a former love interest of his.
Okay, so if you didn't
and
get
this is this lost opportunity right in front of him.
It is doubly lost. I don't know if you guys, I'm getting the impression you didn't pick this up, but that little girl is the main characters. Straight up. Because she lies about how old the daughter is, and then the daughter again is at the funeral.
That's really cool. Well, no, I knew that they were there.
There's a reason they were there.
There's a reason why they're there.
Because it's a lost opportunity on both sides.
Was it his daughter?
His daughter.
That was really well done. Very subtle. I actually did make that connection. And that's what I love about Infernal Affairs is despite its quick pace, there's a lot of subtlety.
But in The Departed, they're not going to let you just miss that.
No, they spell everything out for you.
And so they do
phonetically.
I complained a great deal about the therapist relationships in The Departed because it didn't exist in Infernal Affairs, and it doesn't have to exist that way.
It's inferred in Infernal Affairs.
Ish.
Like there's no physical relationship. But there is something there that could develop.
But they've taken this character, and good on Scorsese for picking up what I picked up, which means we're obviously both
he's
geniuses.
He's combined the wife,
the therapist, and this lost love into one character.
Yeah.
And that lost love scene was super important. And I only saw a brief blip of the daughter at the funeral because that's when the fucking movie died.
I think it's more effective as separate characters.
Way more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Formiga's character, it's got too much to balance, too much to do.
You don't need that overlap.
That love triangle is just padding, honestly.
Speaking of padding that doesn't make sense and doesn't need to be in there, your issue with The Departed, with a lack of action with certain characters.
Which ones? Oh, yes, the ongoing impotence angle.
Oh, God. she mentioned that and Jeff and I are looking at each other. I'm like, oh.
And then it comes up a couple of times.
I caught
like you have it
with multiple characters.
With multiple characters. Like at one point, Matt Damon's talking with Frank and saying, "It's like, oh yes, so like it's about having a son. This is all the fucking you do, and not a single child to show for it. I.e., making sure like you're shooting blanks, pal. That was the whole idea." At one point, Matt Damon is talking with his girlfriend the next morning. She's like, "Oh, guys make a bigger deal of it than it is," meaning that they didn't do anything the night before because nothing could happen. And it just kind of goes on with like this whole impotence angle. And then you have like Leonardo DiCaprio where he gets it on with Vera and everything there is fine. He's not shooting blanks and he is performing. So I guess that's how you dictate a good guy. I don't get it. It was just kind of ongoing.
It's also to really drive home the fact that at the end of The Departed, spoiler alert, every show, that
even though we are talking about movies
that came out years ago.
Yeah, you guys should be watching these movies before you watch the podcast.
Yeah, but they just drives home the point that at the end of the film, it's Leonardo DiCaprio's daughter.
Yeah,
right?
But I mean, the impotence
it's subtle.
didn't need to be...
It's so subtle that you guys didn't even notice in Infernal Affairs, but in this one, it's like, let's drive her home, boys.
But I just don't think impotence has to be swept over the whole film. It was just kind of nice.
Not necessary.
I didn't understand, other than being a direct reference to Whitey Bulger, why the hell Jack Nicholson is also an FBI informant.
So
good
dumb.
God.
That it's so dumb because we never see this come into play. At all, ever. Granted, well, you know, I was watching literally last night with not knowing the connection at the time, the Whitey, and he would just feed the FBI nonsense all the time, and sometimes repeat the same announcements to the cops or whatever.
Well,
and we didn't even get a scene like that.
Here's the
he's
only
not doing
thing
anything other than the fact that he's protected.
It does one thing.
It protects him.
No, not quite. What it does is ensures that Matt Damon doesn't have to have a character arc. Because
100%,
what it ensures is that he basically shoots Frank because he doesn't want the FBI to know about him.
Yeah. Oh, there is no regret. He is covering his ass. We're in Infernal Affairs when that scene happens where he shoots Sam.
Character moment.
It's a defining character moment where he's making a choice to be a better person.
Which calls back to the original speech.
And he does fall back on it when he does erase the file. Mm-hmm. But he is making a choice.
Guys.
Growth is hard. He is making that choice.
It is a continuous
Matt Damon is just covering his ass.
And just to gloss this over again,
he was going to give him back his identity because he didn't at the time. He didn't think that anybody knew.
He didn't know who
didn't
he was.
know the character. You know, and it certainly wasn't out of any kind of.
I'm glad they used the same plot device the same way.
with the writing.
With the writing.
Yeah.
It wasn't... he could have really fucked it up in The Departed and made it way over the top, but it was like subtle like the other one.
Well, I didn't even
it's
understand in The Departed writing Citizens. I mean, yeah, they did misspelling it and then rewriting it.
I
that
think
works.
they had
I
to
think it
find
worked
it.
better with the kanji because kanji is kind of difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, and they even struggle with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of that scene too with at the end, and now this is where the DVD cuts out, is right after the undercover agent who's a cop, Lau, right after Lau shoots Sam. It's a very, like, he sees him, he raises the gun, he makes his decision, he shoots him. That's the scene. Powerful scene, important for character development.
Wonderful.
Now, of course, in The Departed, because we heavy hand everything, Frank fires off 2 rounds and then gets shot. He
Right.
doesn't make the cold decision to escape or get away. He's just like, it's reacting, and then he shoots a whole bunch of other times to make sure he's
FYI,
dead.
Frank reacting to Matt Damon calling him impotent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I think this is a good time to run the
Let's
trailer.
run the trailer for The Departed.
Run the trailer for Departed.
When I was your age, they would say we could become cops or criminals. What I'm saying is this. When you're facing a loaded gun, what's the difference?
This is not the regular police. This is the state police.
We are an elite unit.
This is who we're after.
Frank Costello.
You won't be paid as a regular cop, but there's a bonus involved.
So what do?
You will not ever know the identity of undercover people.
You have anyone in with Costello presently?
Maybe,
Do you know who I am?
maybe not.
I'm gonna have my associate search you.
That was quick. Think he's dead already?
Get your hands off me!
I think we could work something out.
We are all convinced that Costello has at least one mole inside the Special Investigations Unit.
There are parts of my job I can't talk to you about.
Man, you are trouble.
You don't know the half of it.
You better get organized, quick.
Hey, last time I checked, I tipped you off, and you're not in jail.
Getting the feeling we got a cop in my crew.
Sooner or later, he's gonna find out who I am, and he's gonna kill me.
I can get the rat. You just gotta let me do it my way.
If you don't, it won't be me who pays for it.
There is a leak from the inside. It's real, man. Smoke him out.
You're lying to me.
There are things you don't want to know about.
What are you waiting for, honestly? I mean, do you want him to chop me up and feed me to the poor? Is that what you guys want?
How's your brother?
She's on her way out.
You all are. Act accordingly.
Okay, I love that line. We're all on our way out. Act accordingly. That I love that line.
Yeah.
But this trailer actually gives me a good sense of the music in
Yes.
this movie compared to Infernal Affairs. Now, I actually preferred Infernal Affairs soundtrack over The Departed as well. I think the music's kind of all over the place, despite being good songs and a good orchestrated score. I still think they handled that better in Infernal Affairs. And I was kind of curious of what you guys would think, especially Jeff, who's very musically inclined as far as his tastes go. So,
And could it be clouded because of the rage? Trying to watch Infernal Affair, but I don't remember the soundtrack. Like, it didn't stand out for me.
Right.
And the songs are very stand out in Departed because they're double the volume and they're in your face.
Yeah.
And so I would have to revisit both separately. I believe that I liked the intro to Infernal Affair, and the music in that was really great. But past that, I don't really remember, which is weird because I really love movie soundtracks. And sometimes, with films like It Follows, which is amazing if you haven't seen it. And if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. Its music was practically a character in that movie.
I've heard that. I have not seen the movie
Oh my
yet.
god!
but-
I will bring it over. Like, it's amazing.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, Infernal Affair doesn't stand out for me, but it was just such a trial to watch it. So I'm also going to track down this box set and watch it again, and I will pay closer attention. But I found Departed more standout because they are incredible songs and they are fucking in your face. Like, you can't escape it.
And that's just it. They're in your face. There's, again, no subtlety to them whatsoever. With the Infernal Affairs, I remember when watching it, the music, how much it was actually affecting me, how much I was noticing how well it moved with the film.
Yeah, I don't know. I
have a good setup here as well.
I do. So. I do like The Departed, though. I don't know, but I think part of it is my bias is basically like a lot of the stuff that's in there in that soundtrack kind of just brings me back to like some of my earlier years. So,
well, fair enough. I mean, that soundtrack, it's a great soundtrack, but it seems to lack the subtlety yet again, an ongoing theme with that film, at least for me. But I do have a soft spot for most foreign films as a whole. So, but I do have a pretty decent setup here for music. So, listening with a stereo blasting and everything, I'm sure my neighbors love me.
Yeah, I'm gonna revisit it for sure with a cleaner copy and stuff. But and maybe it was even just the DVD. The audio.
It could be. I mean,
it wasn't standout, but it could.
Yeah, you buy something in Richmond, BC, beware. It's probably not legit.
Nothing good comes from Richmond, BC.
If you live below the water table, you're living every moment by the seat of your pants.
So, are we going to discuss compare and contrast the penultimate moment of both movies?
Oh, of course. Why do you think I ran the trailer?
I know.
I wanted to break that up. Okay. The characters do track. We talked about the movie theater, and they're starting to track each other, and they just keep missing each other. But we did glaze over, I think, a fairly important scene earlier on in the movie, which was that time where they're going to make that what they think is going to be the bust of the villain. And this is where the embedded gangster is really dancing to try to keep that from happening. And of course, on the other side, trying to make sure it happens.
Yes.
And we talked about the Morse code in Infernal Affairs, but we didn't talk about how they handled that in The Departed. Now, he's doing the taps on the thing, and he's getting it through the ear in Infernal Affairs. And Lau does notice his attention to detail is so good.
Which is established early on.
It is established. And so he sees the earbud and that he's picking up something.
Both of these, these guys in Infernal Affairs, they're more stable, they're paying more attention, they're better at their jobs.
They really, really are.
Like they're psychologically stable enough to do this.
Everybody's running on panic in The Departed.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we got this major bust happening. What do we do? No cell phones. Let's open up our cell phone.
There's like 4 or 5 times you've got Leonardo DiCaprio just losing his shit on people because you gotta get me out of here.
He should have been shot so many times.
I know. And the thing is, like with the Morse code, with the tapping, nobody would notice that. But, I'm just going to make a quick text while we're doing this big deal. Oh,
that was the worst. And there's guys so up on the roof and stuff, and it's like, that blue light doesn't give you away.
Yeah.
I know, right?
No, well, I mean, he was texting from his pocket there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
No, that was Matt
really
Damon
good.
in the room with all the other cops.
Yeah, but that was another cell phone moment,
where he's slyly looking around, like if anybody even glanced at him, he'd be like, hey, what's that guy doing? We're all dumb cops. I don't even remember how because there was like, I believe in Infernal Affair, there was 2 attempts at a bust. Because there was like, the one with the ties, and then there was
that was the big one.
That was the big one, and in Departed, I think there was just the warehouse bust, and then the climax of the movie
isn't nearly as impressive as it was in Infernal Affairs.
They did the same thing because they had the one with the Chinese with the microprocessors where they try and get them, but they're like,
that's
get rid of the
big
cell
one.
phones. And then there's the other one where they go and get stuff out of the warehouse, which is drugs because they go back to drugs.
Drugs
for that part.
Drugs are the key.
They're like, it's drugs the entire time, but like, Departed's like, okay, microprocessors isn't working. Let's go back to drugs.
And dodging the warehouse in Infernal Affair is like a big deal. Like it happens lots of times, and they just can't quite nail it down.
Yeah.
Because the moles are working with and against each other. And in Departed, of course, it's like, you've got tails, call them off, and we're at the warehouse. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
There's no back and forth.
He's just there to be a monkey.
Yeah.
But how they handle it with like the guy and Alec Baldwin like beating on that, you fucked it up, you forgot one camera. And
he forgot a lot of cameras.
He
To
did
be
forget.
fair, he really is bad at his job. I would be bad too.
Now there was something I liked in The Departed that I wanted maybe in Infernal Affairs, where we see Chen in that cast right away. That arm cast. So at some point he's broken his arm, but we don't know how. We don't know why.
We don't know if he actually broke it.
Oh, it's broken. If it wasn't, it would be. If it wasn't before that moment, it is now.
Yeah, I took it as being broken.
Because of what happens later. And we do see how that happens. So that is one of those things why I kind of appreciated Scorsese giving us that reason to have him in the cast. And then both of them get smashed by their boss.
And to say like with the heavy-handedness of it with The Departed and Jack Nicholson just really wailing on him, I kind of get that. You're like, okay, I may have broken your cast, but I'm like, oh, you could probably endure this once. But if he keeps going, like, I kind of get why that would make more sense rather than just a quick smash of the arm. And like, oh yeah,
at least,
totally
Infernal Affairs, this happens right after that, what was going to be the bust. And they're thinking, okay, well, now we know there's a mole. This is that defining moment that we know there's a mole. And he's just eyeing that cast, and he's like, well, let's see if there's anything in there. And did it the fun way. Smashed his arm over a table and everything's fine. And that reestablishes the character as being, by his side, and that he's not what he thinks is the mole.
There's a lot of establishing trust in Infernal Affairs between Sam and Chen is the...
Chen.
I always forget.
Yeah, it's Chen.
But there's not really any of that in Departed. And he doesn't trust anybody.
No, he doesn't.
With their contrast too, with Sam, there seems to be kind of even a paternalistic relationship with some of these people. Like, he seems more of a paternalistic figure.
Yeah, he's
whereas
kind
Jack
of raising
Nicholson
them.
is just one of fear.
Oh yeah, Nicholson's crazy. I mean,
Jack Nicholson will eat your face.
Every time I'm watching him do his scene, and he's got plenty of them, his character's far beefier than Infernal Affairs. But I see a lot of his Joker character in there.
Much Joker.
And wondering why they had to put him in makeup.
Yeah. It's really like a second Joker movie. If you didn't have enough, watch Departed.
He is out to lunch.
Speaking of the paternal nature of the movies, this is another issue I had with Departed that was super important. Again, we establish a relationship between for lack of whatever the term is, the chief of police in Infernal Affairs and the cop as the gangster mole, Chen. There's a real sense of like connection with those guys. And like, it's been 10 years. He's the only guy who knows him. The only guy who knows his real name. He remembers his birthday. There's a lot of like important stuff that connects those two characters. And when he gets killed in Infernal Affairs, you feel it. You feel it, and you see in his face. Mm-hmm. And he has like a sissy space I can carry moment where one look defines the scene.
They try to give Martin Sheen that fatherly figure
and
moment,
failed.
but
he
far too late in the movie. Yeah. It just doesn't carry over so late in the movie where he's suddenly trying to be that figure when he was never doing it prior.
No, and you also don't really get a sense of it ever.
But he was the only one that was on, you at least get the idea he's on Leo's side, whereas Wahlberg was the only other person who knew.
I don't trust Wahlberg.
Wahlberg, God, I thought he was going to ass rape DiCaprio. Like, he just didn't give a shit about anybody.
Yeah.
Well, that was his one dimension, and he rolled with it.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, like, with DiCaprio, like, I don't know, there's some good stuff in his performance, but I have to say, like, the main guy who played Yen and like the first one, I'm like going, I liked him. Like, there's something very endearing about that. He's a
likable guy. You feel pity towards him for his situation. You don't for DiCaprio. It's like, you're a piece of shit. This guy's a piece of shit. This other guy's a piece of shit. Like, everybody's a piece of shit in that movie, which is why we get to like, we won't even, we'll wait till the very end to talk about the rat, but like, that's just how that movie is everything's, shitty. Everybody is shitty.
Garbage, and they remain garbage throughout.
Even the psychiatrist is a piece of shit.
Oh, she's not good.
No, she's like flip-flops from one guy to the next. It's not a love triangle.
That's not even my point. The fact is she's terrible at her job.
Bad at her
and
job.
Seems to be histrionic, which is like, Why couldn't you make her like?
Oh yeah,
I don't know, a
DiCaprio
good
flips out, and wants
psychiatrist?
painkillers, and she's not going to give it to him. And then he walks out, and then she gives him
how
a
hard is it
prescription.
to write a psychiatrist who isn't going to freak the fuck out?
Yeah.
Oh, and FYI, I'm sorry if you're in a relationship with some guy and he flies off the handle as quickly as Matt Damon does, like all the time, run. Because it's not going to go well for you.
This is not a good sign.
Well, she doesn't bring her work
Like he
home
goes
with
from
her, so she
0 to
doesn't see anything.
60 100% of the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I get the feeling he was a project that ran away, got too far. But we should get on to Superintendent Wong and Martin Sheen's character, whose name I can't remember, Queenan, and their death scene, because they are very similar.
Powerful and important, an Infernal Affair, and a throwaway scene
Just
in Departed.
bloody mess.
For what should have been an important scene in The Departed is handled too late.
Oh, and they flip a character completely differently in The Departed as opposed to Infernal Affairs due to that scene. In Infernal Affairs, he gets into a cab and comes out front to show he was just late. Mm-hmm. In The Departed, the one guy gives him the wrong address, and he somehow shows up, so his buddy knows that he's the mole before he kicks the bucket.
Yeah. Well, this is the meeting where the superintendent is going to pull Chen out. He's kind of worried that it's gone too far. We're to pull him out, so they meet on top of this abandoned building. It's
that they've done many times.
Really?
Yes.
I
It wasn't abandoned. It was,
that one was
an
actual. Yeah, that one actually had people in it, whereas it was abandoned in Boston.
Yeah.
Just easier that way, I guess.
Throwaway scene.
No extras. But yeah, they're somehow they know. Oh yeah, because they were tailing. In both movies, they put a tail. They put a tail on
the inspector,
the superintendent, and Martin Sheen's version of it, Queenan.
Because the police mole figures that's the best way to out the other guy.
Yeah,
because the police mole's looking for the mole in the gang, so police mole has cop followed. Yeah. It gets complicated, guys.
That was the smartest play.
Yeah,
which was so unlike Matt Damon. he had a brief moment of brilliance at that moment.
Yeah,
that's because they whipped it wholesale from the previous film.
So they know there's a meeting going, and then he calls in the gangsters to go in. And how did the cops arrive? I can't remember how the cops arrive.
They arrive with the police mole, and he leads the attack in the elevator on SP Tsang.
Right.
So he does it personally.
Right.
Like they say
more power to
They say they beat the shit out of him to try and get the mole. They don't. They toss him out a window. He lands on top of the cab, ironically. Powerful scene. Guy and fight ensues. They run. And in The Departed, they're on the abandoned building, which we never established that they did this. And this was established a lot in Infernal Affair. It was how they contacted each other. So this is a brand new sequence of events at a throwaway abandoned building that's 6 floors high. And, they show up and he's like, run, and then they just show up and kill him, and it's retarded. And then they throw him out the window. Yeah,
well, both of them kind of sack the
and police mole stays at the station.
Yeah,
he's not involved in The Departed.
No, not involved in The Departed. And Queenan and the inspector both sacrifice themselves so the mole can get away. Sends him down the window cleaning
thing in Infernal Affairs, and fire escape in Departed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but you get more. There's also a follow-up scene in
the cab.
Infernal Affairs.
I liked how the cab thing worked. That worked.
That
better.
makes more sense because that's a better cover-up. But like I say, like it's just different.
That's a carnage scene.
There's a minor character in Infernal Affairs called Kyung, I think. He's like he's kind of a goofball. He's of comedic.
Everybody's a cop. How do you know they're a cop? They're not. They're pretending
they're not looking at you and doing something else. Then everybody's a cop.
And then they flip that in The Departed. If they're not paying attention to you, they're a cop.
And they make a joke out of it.
Everybody who walks by isn't paying attention to them.
If you're a pretty girl, they're a cop. You're a cop. Well, I'm going home, guys.
Yeah. Either way, it's kind of funny, but when you see it handled the second time, it's less funny.
Yeah, but then the first one, they've already established Kyung as kind of like a goofy sort of guy. Like, because Sam says he's Kyung's crazy. He's not very smart. He's established that.
Yeah.
But Kyung saves Yan's life. He's like, we gotta get out of here. And he takes them in the car and they're going away. And then there's this whole moment where he talks about what happened on the roof. He's like, they beat him for like 10 minutes, 10 long minutes.
Yeah, and he didn't give anything up.
And he didn't say anything. He's like going, and I, like when Sam said, if I found the mole, would I kill him? I'm not an idiot. I said, yes, but I don't like violence. I'm not happy
I
with
hide
that.
under the car when the gunfight ensues. Yeah, he was like a sympathetic. Everyone's very sympathetic in Infernal Affairs rather than a huge asshole. Like,
and then he dies, and he's like going, I didn't tell him that you went for a massage, and like, but I don't think at the end he suspects that he's the mole.
I think he did. Honestly.
Really? I don't think he did. He's not that smart.
Right in those final moments, he put some connections there, but he was still being loyal to his gang.
I half expected him to actually just be like the guy to actually tell him like I am the mole before the guy dies. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
No, but he died protecting his brothers because they're established as more of a family in Infernal Affairs rather than a ragtag bunch of Irish assholes in Departed. And so he had said, I would protect my brothers first, whatever. And so, I mean, they have this relationship, they work together, and he covered for him, but I don't feel like, I agree. I think he knew he was the mole, but he didn't want to out him because they had this relationship together where no one has a relationship in The Departed. Like that guy that plays this character in The Departed, like where the fuck did that guy come from?
Yeah, he
Nowhere.
He came in late. FYI, I was noticing, I'm like, who do I know that guy from? Like, he was an Alien, wasn't he? He was like one of the Marines in Alien. He's been around Hollywood for a while. And I'm like,
every
I know this
face
guy.
in The Departed was familiar.
Seriously,
every single one of them.
Every last one of them. But at the end, like, when he's dying, he's like, I told you the wrong address and you showed up. And like, he's about to out him and he dies.
Yeah.
Like, luckily he
No,
dies.
he isn't. You guys keep missing things. Jesus, he isn't about to out him. He said, I didn't say anything. Ask me why.
Oh.
Because he's also a policeman.
I was getting very frustrated.
Yeah.
There's just moles everywhere.
Oh, they're all over the place.
Okay, but he said he didn't do it because he was like a policeman. But in in Infernal Affairs, I thought it was the same thing they were doing in Infernal Affairs where they said he was undercover.
No, he was legitimately a cop.
Okay, so in Depart, he's legitimately undercover, whereas in Infernal Affairs, he's not legitimately undercover, I don't think.
Was there anybody in Costello's gang who wasn't an informant for somebody? Including Costello.
French wasn't.
French was the only one. He was the only on the level gangster. Yeah. Because he's the only guy who says, I'm trustworthy, I'm reliable. He's the only guy in that whole movie that states
Ray
that.
Winstone is the man.
He's the guy.
The only guy we can trust to be a criminal, and we like him.
Yeah.
Because that's who he is.
That's who he is. Yeah, he's the only guy.
When faced with Ray Winstone, I'm like, I know what you're... That's awesome.
Frank's playing both sides all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we never figure out the FBI thing, it's just thrown at us as a piece
that's
of
the thing.
knowledge.
As heavy-handed as it is, I like Ray Winstone as French. Like,
for
I like
sure.
him as
No,
the number
he was good. I mean, there were a lot of good parts in there, and the characters, like they were great performances.
He isn't really a character in Infernal Affairs.
No.
There's no equivalent, but I like his addition in Departed. I think it's very, very smart. I think.
Yeah, Sam handles a lot of that himself, where they kind of separate that. Frank, he gets his hands dirty, but most of the time, that's who
he really gets his hands dirty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, at one point I'm like, well, okay.
I did like the scene where he was trying to figure out if DiCaprio was a mole or not by calling in this new crew, which was all faked.
Yeah.
That was a good scene that just, DiCaprio got lucky. He's like, this isn't jiving with
This doesn't
me.
feel right.
I'm not reporting this.
Okay, he has his
So he got lucky.
because they're like, you're a fucking genius.
They're just
Why
trying
are you
to
a
see if
skater?
what was going on would make it back to
Because they all
headquarters.
suspect Bill.
Yeah.
They all suspect DiCaprio as the mole because he's the new guy.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, it can't be Bill because there wasn't any, and he said, and actually Jack, what's his name? Frank
Costello.
says that to Matt Damon. He's like, well, it isn't Bill because you didn't hear about the new guys.
Yeah.
So that's like, okay, you're clear now, so now you're okay. And then he's free to do whatever bullshit at the climax of the movie because Frank's like, wow, you're fine.
Yeah.
Because Departed.
Well, we should get to that climax. It's
We'll start with Infernal Affairs, and you guys can tell me what fucking happened.
well, Trisha's got the eye for detail, so I'll let her break it
The
down.
eye
and
for
then we'll
detail
talk
of the final one? Okay, well, basically you have the final what happens is I'm going to start with the stereo. At the end of the movie, we have the beginning of the movie where the two guys, they're discussing a stereo at the store, and they're like, this one's great, like the music is beautiful, and the music goes right through you. So you get to the penultimate moment, he kind of comes back to his house. Lau comes back to his house, and his wife just looks gutted. Something has happened. And he's like, what's wrong? It's like, is there something wrong with the stereo? And she's like, no, a guy came over to tune it, and he left a CD for you, and I listened to it.
We kind of skipped over when both Nicholson and Sam get killed. This is actually before this.
This is before everybody gets killed, but I feel this follows up everything.
Okay.
That's an important scene.
This is where you have to start.
This is important. Yeah, okay.
And then she says, I listened to it. And it starts off with the music they were actually listening to at the beginning of the film. That I could figure out.
Yeah.
And, but then partway through, it cuts in and it's got a recording. It's got a recording of Lau talking to Sam about finding the mole in his gang. So his wife knows that she's married to some guy.
And they handle it again.
Married to the mob.
Again, that was really well done because she's been struggling with this novel. Really dumb idea of this guy with 28 personalities.
But it does bring up a good point.
Scary, right?
But the way that worked out at the with that scene is she's got this tear in her eye and he goes, "What's wrong?" I'm like, I don't know the end of my story. I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. And she's not talking about her story.
And
that's beautifully done, even though that story that she's writing is just complete nonsense.
Yeah, but this really brings it out full circle. Totally. So he knows he's meeting this guy the next day. He's like, you have to meet here. Again, they're going to meet on a roof because they're very roof-friendly guys.
Roofy, yeah. It's
which also
thing.
is a line that comes up after a while. Okay, so Lau's on the roof. He's looking around. He thinks he sees something out of the corner of his eye. He doesn't. But then, just like sneaks right up, like just quiet as anything. There's a gun in his back. Manages to pat him down, get away his gun. He's like, so what do you want? He's like, I want my identity back. And like, I think he offers him money at some point too. He's like, we'll get you. But he's like, no, I just want my identity back. That's what I want. I've got lots of recordings. I've got all the stuff.
Yeah. Now, this is after he's already set up Sam. Lau's making a choice to be a better person. After all this nonsense has gone down, he sets up Sam, gets him...
And Yan says he's going to arrest him, and he's like, no, I've made my choice. I don't want to be that guy anymore. He's like, well, maybe tell the judge, maybe they'll give you a deal if you want to be a better guy. So he's like, no, I'm going to take you out. And then another guy kind of comes up. Comes out the stairwell, I think, just as he's trying to take him out. And take him down.
One of Sam's embedded guys, even though Sam's no longer with us.
Sorry, we're jumping.
Sam gets killed.
Let's go back to the parkade. What happens in the parkade?
Sam gets killed prior
by Lau.
to
this
all
is prior
that.
Than this.
Yeah, Sam
Lau's
gets prior.
made the big. Everybody's happy. Woohoo! We got Sam! Yay! And then
and this is Lau's stretch to become the cop that he's been posing.
Sorry, I'm extending this.
Yeah, you when you jump to that CD scene, that's all after Sam's gone. He's gone.
Yeah. So he's taking him out. He's got him covered. He's taking him to the elevators. Just as he comes in, the other cop that has come up there just bullet to the head. Yeah.
Okay. How they communicated with each other, because it was through Sam's cell phone. After they killed him. There was no arrest. They just killed him cold blood. And I think that was Lau.
Lau decided to do that.
We discussed this earlier. That was his defining moment.
Yeah, that's his defining moment. But he does there's this calls back and forth, and through
in an evidence bag. Important point.
Which Departed doesn't do.
No.
He's just holding the bloody phone.
He smears blood on it, then puts it up to his head. It's so dumb.
Yeah, apparently evidence just wanders
Chain
around
of evidence,
willy-nilly.
You dumbass. Anyway, he starts tapping on the bag on the phone the Morse code and sets up this meeting because he's been studying and wants to bring the mole out. He does the mole. The Chen doesn't know that Lau is also the informant, at least not at this point.
But to be fair, here's what I found confusing, and it's a good thing that Lau has turned over a new leaf, because honestly, trusting somebody you don't know in this type of situation, knowing there's a mole in the department, would you do that? No.
Yeah.
That seems silly.
We shouldn't have gotten to the end yet, because, so he sets up that meeting, brings him in, It's over. We got him. And so Chen comes to Police Central to get his identity back and to settle all this because, the only guy who knew he was in the cop was thrown off a building.
Yep.
So this is his chance to finally get out. And then he notices, he goes to get into the file. The file he couldn't get into because of a certain password.
And FYI, I love the password.
That was great. Yeah, it was
Morse code for undercover.
That's right.
So it's
Morse
dots
code.
and dashes. It wasn't anything.
Yeah. It was dots and dashes.
I didn't get to see that. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's
that's
dots
way
and
better
dashes.
than Departed. It's my name.
Yeah,
Shut
see,
up.
that's what I thought. That's the stupidest thing. But Morse code. Who would think
dots and dashes, great password. So they get into the file, and he has to leave the office to deal with this for a moment. And
Printer.
it was a printing issue or whatever. And he's gonna give him his identity back because Chen doesn't know that he's the mole, at least not yet. While he's standing in the office, he notices that folder that he wrote the new kanji on, correcting that guy who wrote it. So
who didn't write
that's the folder with all of the people in the crew that Lau should not have. So right there and then he puts it together and then he leaves, and that's when he makes that CD and that whole bit. And when he's gone out of the office and Lau comes back and he's not there and he sees that folder, he knows, and he makes that choice to delete it.
And I thought that was great in The Departed. That scene is almost the same.
It is almost the same because it's so
crucial.
well done.
Yeah,
it is a
it's really
crucial
well done.
scene, and it's perfect the way it is.
Did you feel, just to knock on Matt Damon a little bit, that his acting when he was playing good cop seemed really forced? Did you get that impression?
Well, at no point did I think he was a good cop. He never once convinced me he was a good cop.
No, never. When he's like, I'm going to recommend you, he doesn't talk like that, but I'm going to recommend you for the...
You can say it that way. Go ahead and say it that way.
I want to recommend him for the Congressional Medal of Honor.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congressional Medal of Honor. It's the highest award
I want to recommend him for the Medal of Honor. I don't think that had anything to do with him being altruistic. I think it was still covering his ass.
This is a case of bringing it right over from Infernal Affairs, and I think it's a last-ditch effort to make him look that way. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't
it's bad.
work. Yeah, it doesn't work in The Departed at all.
But anyway, in Infernal Affairs, he gets. We're at the point.
We're at that point now in the elevator. Yeah.
We're at that point in the elevator, and Jan's got him, and then the other cop just point blank shoots him in the head.
Yeah,
so your
he's
principal
backing
guy.
in, and his head just comes out enough. Bam! And it turns out that this other cop that was backing up Lau on the bottom was also embedded.
Yep.
From the gang, and I don't even think Lau knew that. Well, now Lau did know that because they
said I came in
explain it.
1994, which means he came in after
And his career
Lau,
didn't
so
take
Lau
off.
wouldn't have known.
Yeah, he even says my career didn't take off like yours
did.
And he hands Lau the gun.
He's like, it's us. Let's give them a good show.
Yeah, let's give him a good show. And so he just shoots him. Lau shoots him and leaves him there.
But I love the way they did
That's
this.
the setup
They
to
don't
make him.
show it. You just see the elevator moving
it.
and hear
Yeah.
gunshots.
Yeah.
Oh, you see them come through the roof.
Well, Lau comes out.
Yeah, Lau comes out, but
By himself.
you don't see the actual shootout.
No, you don't. You just Lau comes out.
I
And
love that
that's
idea.
That's a nice.
Because you don't know.
Yeah, until he walks out that door. You don't know who's going to walk out.
Yeah,
because
because the shock of your principal character, because really
it was
like
shocking.
whoa, out of nowhere,
Yes.
and so quick and no fanfare like in Departed, like it's just so fast. And then you hear the gunshots, and you can only assume that your secondary principal character is done, and they've just like cleaned it up, and that's the end of that.
Yeah,
and it totally isn't. Yeah, so
I watched that and I'm like, holy shit!
I know. Well, with the darkness of like the
It was amazing.
insidious evil and things, and
He worked
them
so hard to
getting
get out,
ahead.
too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It kind of makes sense. You're like that dark
And
ending
that
kinda
theme
makes
of being
sense.
trapped in limbo in the roles that they're in cannot escape. It's constantly
But
there.
actually, this one actually makes sense that it is they're trapped in the roles they're in. You know how they say you go undercover so long you forget who you are.
And
He did. He
did.
became a cop.
He did. And much like the party, he does get honored at the funeral. And this is where I'll get to the alternate ending on Infernal Affairs.
Or alternatively, can I just say one more thing about
Sure.
the funeral at the end that you probably didn't get because you didn't get to the end of Infernal Affairs? Why Scottish bagpipes at the Chinese policeman's funeral?
I don't know. Maybe I got nothing. I'm sorry. If any of our listeners know if that's a cultural thing or not, please write in and let us know.
I found that just an odd.
And you could do that at invasionoftheremake@gmail.com, at Invasion Remake on Twitter, and of course Invasion of the Remake on Facebook.
You know what's funny? There's always like some unanswerable question every episode that we can work
and
that
then
in.
I can work
and
that in.
And it's not even planned. Like we just really don't know.
Yeah, we sometimes have blind spots in our knowledge, but here's where you guys come
That's
in.
right, because you guys can help us out on some of these, and there's probably some subtleties that we totally missed or we just didn't talk about. So that could be one of them. Now, in the alternate cut, which they don't wind up using when they get into the sequels, but there is an alternate cut to this where Lau exits the elevator, and the police already know he's the mole, and he's arrested, and he hands over his gun and badge without protest, and that's how that movie ends. That's the alternate ending. But in the ending we saw, he gets out, and he gets to be the cop that he always wanted to be, because he covered his ass.
That he grew into.
Yeah, so I'm very much excited to see what his next chapter is in Infernal Affairs 2.
Yeah, I kind of want to see that too now.
Now we'll never get to see that version in The Departed.
No.
Because it's ridiculous.
Because
everybody's a mole.
Because they added a character that didn't need to be there.
You go to the doctor, you can get moles removed for free.
Yep.
And they're like, you know what? This isn't bloody enough. Let's add just a fourth body for some reason.
Yeah, it was another one of the cops. He comes as the backup.
Yeah, who they
who was
made
established
he was
as
established.
a good guy.
Kind of
I mean, the whole again. There's the setup of Frank Costello, and Damon shoots him point blank.
After shots are fired.
After shots are fired multiple times.
You betcha.
Frank goes down hard.
He does go down hard, and he has like. Why did he have the like little Jesus on the cross moment in the like? What is that about?
I don't know.
Scorsese's big Christian. That's Catholic. Sorry.
Catholic? Yeah. Because, like, it makes sense. Let's call back an episode. The one that I was barely involved in, except this one moment. But in the Charlton Heston Omega Man, the effigy of Christ makes perfect sense, right? Yeah. Savior of the human race. In this, he's a piece of shit like everybody, and he's doubly a piece of shit, and now he's dead, and for some reason he's, I don't know. Well, it's a weird choice.
Let's face it, he thought he was the
He thought he was.
He thought he was the second coming.
Strangely enough, this would only make any sense in the Infernal Affairs, where you have the character things. He would be a source of redemption for Lau. That's the only way that could possibly make sense.
True, except it wasn't a redeeming act for Matt Damon.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense in the party. Infernal Affairs.
In Infernal Affairs, you kind of like Sam.
Yeah,
you do.
He's like kind of a cool
guy,
dude,
yeah.
and you kind of like Nicholson too. But you just want to see what crazy shit's going to come out of his mouth next. It's not because he's a nice person.
He's coming unhinged.
You don't want to be in the same room as him. I'm like, no. That's too much crazy. I don't need to be around crazy. That.
He's a lot.
This town needs an enema. Oh wait, wrong movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, they do it's the same type of ending in The Departed. They just add the other cop who they establish as new DiCaprio when they were cadets, like lo and behold, so many years ago.
They also add another cop because in Infernal Affair, it's the two principals in the elevator. Mystery mole shows up, shoots him, he gets shot, and we're done.
Yeah.
But in this, there's like the other cadet cop.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know me. And he's like, put down the gun, and he gets shot by Mystery Mole. So they add a body.
This was, I think, that was just a little bit of misdirection by Scorsese, because if you had seen Infernal Affairs, you're expecting that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was waiting for him
but
to
I
shoot.
think as we've already established with
too.
the box office in the U.S., nobody would know that.
Well, exactly. Yes, we have established that at the
you're
top of this
doing a misdirect for no goddamn reason.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's 2015, and you're the only person I know who's seen this movie. So now there's three of us. We can start a club.
That's right.
Continue as hell. And so added a body, and the redeeming moments are all non-existent. I don't know. It just was handled so poorly. And then he shows up. It's like, oh no, because you get this sense at the funeral that he split with the wife, and that the incredibly super subtle. The kid is
Matt Damon's
the other guy.
life is already falling apart. Yeah. The kid.
It seems like it started falling apart.
Yeah, it was already starting to fall apart, but nobody's talking to him.
He's like,
now.
what about the baby?
Even though he's being shown as this hero cop.
Yeah, no one's around.
Nobody's around. So
and then Marky Mark shows up.
So then they put him out of his misery.
Well, yeah. And Mark Wahlberg shows up. He's in his apartment, and he's all decked out in the Dexter suit.
Yeah.
He not to leave evidence. Tracksuit with rubbers
booties.
on his
He's got
feet.
booties.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because that's all you need to
and
kill
gloves.
somebody is booties.
And he's got the hair thing too. So he's
and then there's the 9-foot blood spray.
Yeah, but he just shoots Damon. And then walks out of the place.
Damon asks for it in the elevator, which is also a weird scene. He's like, you go to trial, you see what's going to happen, and then they're riding in the elevator.
Kill me.
He's like, just kill me. And then and this is, again, it's so effective just to be quick in Infernal Affairs. Like, it's like a gut reaction. In this, it's drawn out. And he's standing there, and he's like, okay.
And before we started recording this, we had, even the three of us were kind of we had different takes on that scene where Wahlberg shoots him, and as to the motivations, which one of you thought it was?
I thought that Mark Wahlberg's character was also a mole, and that's why he shot him to wrap everything up, and then maybe he goes back to the police. I don't know. I always felt like he was
Frank's
acting for Frank.
And the whole point of it, like, if he knew about DiCaprio the whole time, then...
that didn't make a lot of sense, because DiCaprio the whole role would have been pointless. Now, my take was, because it was fairly established, he didn't give two shits about DiCaprio. But I think he loved Queenan.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was vengeance.
And it was purely a vengeance killing for Queenan. How he knows... I don't know, but...
Oh, no, I think you're giving him too much credit. I don't think he has to know. I think he just blames him, and that's all he needs to know.
Well, yeah, with Wahlberg's character, the way that character was...
he doesn't need any other motivation.
That's true. As long as he believes that's the truth and the fault, I'd agree with that.
Because he wants to hide it, he wants to cover it up, he just wants it done.
So, no Departed 2.
Nope. And then the worst scene in both movies happens. We pan out to the halls of justice. And a fucking giant rat climbs out on the balcony railing and is clearly eating whatever drew him to that spot, center camera. And then we cut out because everybody in the judicial system is a rat.
Infernal Affairs.
That is not an Infernal Affairs. It was bad.
Yeah, because everybody in that movie is a rat for somebody. And, let's put a rat in there. And, that wasn't the theme of Infernal Affairs. They certainly make that the theme of Departed. The theme of Infernal Affairs is trying to get out of the roles that they're in, and they're trapped and they can't.
Yeah, continuous hell.
The continuous hell, which is such a better theme for me. Just the whole rat mole thing. I'm like, oh, come on. Like, this is not a character moving thing like it is over in Infernal Affairs. You really care. You want him to make that choice because he's a very likable person.
I think it's mainly because, like, the theme for, like, Infernal Affairs is, like you say, it's people trapped in roles, trying to escape these roles, but trying to do something better for the good of society. Like, there's more morality at play here. Mm-hmm. But The Departed is just, like, just simple betrayal. Like, even if you're a bad guy, somebody does something bad to you, it's betrayal.
Yeah.
Betrayal's bad. No matter how bad you are, if somebody betrays you, you are justified in doing whatever it takes to get rid of them.
Didn't want to be a bad guy.
Pretty much everybody's forced into their roles in Departed, and they seem to be happy to be there.
Yeah.
Or scared to be there and too afraid to change anything.
Yeah.
Damon just saw an exit point, and that was pure out of self-preservation.
Yep, and he took it. And DiCaprio has his one moment, and it's really bad, where he's like, I don't want to be you, Frank. I don't want to be you.
That's it. Like,
I could be you.
I could be you, but I don't want to be you.
I don't want to be you. No.
Well, and it's sort of...
You be you.
Well, do you remember earlier in the
film? You and I'll be
Do
me.
you remember earlier in the film they discussed the whole fact that, like, if his uncle and his father had seen him sitting with Frank, both his uncle and his father would have gone to try and take Frank's head off?
And then
Yes.
they say that his dad, who is established as like a good guy, he's the janitor. Actually, he was also a piece of shit because everybody's a piece of shit.
Now, after the funeral scene in Infernal Affairs, there's this beautiful flashback back to the cadets.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Where they're
love that scene.
right there and then. You could see even then they didn't want to be in there. Like he wanted to. If he could change that role, he would have.
Yeah, like who do you want to be? I
He
want
goes-
to be like you.
Yeah, so we see that flashback a couple of times where Chen is being kayfabe thrown out of the cadets, even though he was a starter pupil. He's being embedded into the gang,
Yeah.
but he's walking out, and we see Lau seeing him wash out, and he wants to be him. He doesn't want to be.
He doesn't want to be the cop. He wants to be
He
the guy
doesn't
who
want
gets away.
this role.
Yeah, he didn't want that role. Even then, he didn't want that role.
And all we
Just a
get from Matt Damon is
beautiful role.
firefighters is a bunch of fags.
Yeah. Was that necessary?
That's the only. Well,
Oh,
God.
we need to show Matt Damon playing rugby against firefighters. No, you don't.
Yeah.
So, it was such a beautiful, crucial point. Like, it just put a nice, fine point and a really nice note at the end of that movie that all we got is a fucking rat.
Yep. Rats everywhere.
Rat, right? Walking on a windowsill. I'm like, fuck.
Terrible.
It just left such a sour note in my mouth. I'm like, this
Yeah,
movie was never about redemption, and that's
it was about being a rat.
something I wanted to believe in that
Yeah.
made Infernal Affairs work so well. And it gets killed, and I just didn't care. And like I said, I'm going to keep saying it. This is a really good movie, The Departed. It really is. There's a lot going on. If you had not seen Infernal Affairs, you're probably going to really enjoy it, but it's really fucking long.
But if you want to see dark characters with plot happening around them,
yeah.
that's The Departed.
I mean,
if you want to see
if
characters
you want to see
becoming...
examples of great character acting with no actual script developing them,
Yeah.
the actors putting as much as they can to make that character work.
I'm
then
thinking
you might
now
have
on.
something.
I'm thinking now as I feel like we're wrapping up on both films, and that I wonder if it's a cultural difference, because this is the overlying themes that I get from both movies. In Infernal Affairs, it seems to me like they are romanticizing the good guy. The good guy is forced to be bad, and he wants to be good again. He wants his good identity back.
Mm-hmm.
And with Lau, he is bad, and he is forced to become the good guy, and then he wants to live as the good guy. He's like, being the good guy is the right thing to do. Same with the character. So there's a romanticism of being the good guy. That is where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And in The Departed, it's the crushing inevitability of evil is the overlying theme.
Yeah.
That everybody, if you walk down that pathway, you are forever down that pathway. The darkness envelops you, and you can't escape, no matter what you try to do. Even if that stupid Mark Wahlberg scene hadn't happened, and Mark Wahlberg had continued on in his life, he didn't have the happy family, he didn't have the loving wife, or the fulfilling career that Lau would have had in, or is going to have. Right? So, and I wonder if it's cultural, that, there's always this...
I'm wondering, and that's why I like watching foreign movies. I get a different angle on things.
Totally.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the romanticism of like the anti-hero, and maybe it's just where your values sit. Like I say, Infernal Affairs was about redemption, but Departed is really just about betrayal, and it doesn't matter in what form this betrayal happens to you. That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter whether you have a
everybody walks
moral
that line of betrayal.
compass.
Yeah.
Even the psychiatrist,
Yeah,
she
it
shot her
doesn't-
husband.
Yeah, it's about lies and betrayal.
all
It's
the
like
time.
going, you're always wronged by somebody who lies and betrays you. It doesn't matter their reasoning.
I'm
It
good at
doesn't
my
matter
job.
anything. It doesn't matter. And all people are garbage. And I think maybe it's just such a nihilistic viewpoint, but it is the viewpoint that's
I wonder if
there.
that's again goes back to Scorsese's Catholic roots. and
you're damned if you're damned.
Well, yeah, it's probably more of a biblical thing that maybe I'm not fully grasping, but not being Catholic, but
well, I don't know. There's a lot of themes in Scorsese's movies where it's all nihilism, where there's like the evil just keeps coming and it keeps coming and it keeps coming.
There really is not a lot of Scorsese movies that give you a lot of hope about the future of humanity.
No, like it's sort of like you end up in a bad situation and you might end up in a slightly less bad situation, and that's the best you can hope for.
And that's a common theme in American films.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, is it a cultural thing? I haven't seen a lot of Chinese movies. I've watched a lot of Japanese movies.
Well, and this was something, did you notice, like, even though, Lau, through his journey of redemption, he was supposed to be the bad guy, which is great. The whole antagonist-protagonist being flipped back and forth constantly in that movie.
Yes.
But he gets away with it. That's not something American movies allow. The bad guy cannot get away with it. Even now, you never get that. And you got to put that fine point on it and just say that guy's got to get his comeuppance.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't even.
And maybe it happens in Infernal Affairs 15, but
I'm not sure it's even comeuppance that we're talking about. Like, people don't want comeuppance. They don't want justice. They want justice according to their viewpoint. They're like, this person...
See how many times we could say comeuppance, like we're like...
Comeuppance.
50s moles.
Yeah, gotta come up and see. But, I mean, they want justice...
me of the Mummy.
They want justice according to their viewpoint.
They do.
Like, it's not justice from the really logical conclusion. They want justice compared to somebody's wronged me.
It's not judicial justice.
It's like they've wronged me, and they get their punishment for how they've wronged me, not how they wronged society.
Just when you made that Mummy reference, I'm sorry to break that, but I just had to note that the guy who played S.B. Wong was in Mummy, the Dragon Emperor one.
Oh, he's in number 3?
Yeah, he's in number 3.
Hilarious. I just love that moment with Benny where she's like, nasty little fellows like you always get their comeuppance. And he's like, do they?
Oh, S.B. Wong.
S.B.
Loved
Wong.
him too.
Yeah.
I loved him too.
Yeah, he was a really lovable... Everybody was like pretty likable in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I could get it. Like, with the little psychiatrist lady, I totally could get why she'd go...
I loved his psychiatrist. We didn't mention it, but he just sleeps. It's like his moment where he can just get away.
I feel he feels
cool.
safe.
And she just plays solitaire.
It was his safe place,
He's not trying to fucking... Well, maybe he's trying to bone her, but not really.
Yeah.
Not like, I'm gonna put it in you.
I don't know.
And I think she's sitting there going, like, I don't think you're broken.
$150 an hour to sleep on her couch.
Yeah, like, I think she knows. She's like going, look, I know you've been under a while, but I can still see you've still got that glimmer of who you should be. And I don't think you're broken. I think you're just under a lot of stress.
Well, yeah, and she's like, I think you should get a chair of your own. He's like, well, then I wouldn't get to come and see you. And so that's like your moment.
But he does flirt with her, so.
They're just cute. Everyone's cute in that
movie.
Yeah, especially the girls. That his love interest, I'm like, God damn.
Yeah.
She looks so familiar.
She was so cute.
I don't know if I'd seen her in something else.
But
that's a different podcast.
Yeah. We're slowly revealing our Asian female fetishes.
I know Trish is, yeah.
Trish included.
No, I legitimately thought I'd seen her in something else. I don't know.
Well,
I could see her in lots of things.
Hey, okay, no. If it comes for the fact that, I'm like the Chen guy all the way. I thought he was adorable. I was like, I know he was an undercover gangster, but all the way. Yeah. Like, this is my Team Edward, Team Jacob analysis.
Oh no!
Is it Lau or Chen? No.
After
Chen.
all that poignancy,
Team Chen,
and that's
Team
where
Chen.
we land.
Funny.
Totally Team Chen.
Well, I think we did a heck of a job with this one. Boy, I wish all of our movies could be this good, but they won't be.
No.
So
yeah, there aren't a lot of Academy Award-winning remakes.
No,
sure.
so
I know, right?
Yeah, if anybody else knows of a Best Picture remake, I don't know of it, but yeah, we'll cover it if it's out there or it happens in the near future. But
or maybe there's a Best Picture we'd like to see remade.
I bet you there is.
Are we going to take that dangerous path?
Come March around Oscar time, we should do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I think we should take a best picture.
We got to be bold and go for it.
Whew, that's either going to make us look really intelligent and awesome or complete assholes.
Yeah.
I don't care. Either way, I'm for it.
I think I need a giant spider.
Jeff,
Gone with the Wind.
Everything needs
You
a
and the
giant
giant
spider.
Gone with the Wind with giant spiders.
It is the news.
I've always depended on the kindness of giant spiders. Frankly,
All right.
solid, I just don't give a damn.
Well, thanks again. And once again, if you got any comments or questions, you can tweet us at Invasion Remake, Invasion of the Remake on Facebook, and of course, Invasion of the Remake at gmail.com. You can now subscribe to us on Stitcher and iTunes and other podcatcher stuff. So check us out. We're also on the Libsyn app. So you have no excuse not to listen to us. Tell everybody that to listen to us, rate us, subscribe. Please rate us, for sure. Rate us, write a review on iTunes or whatever. For some reason, that helps us somehow. I think that gets us up on the queue in the search bars or whatever. So do us that solid, and we'll keep giving you some great content for free right here on Invasion Remake. I am Jason.
Deep undercover, I'm Jeff.
Not so deep undercover, I'm Trish.
You dirty rat!
You killed my brother.
We're gonna go, see? We're gonna be undercover, see?
Forget it, Jason. It's Chinatown.
And we're out of here.